John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high and low. Cinema Classics on NBC.
This special edition of Cinema Classics celebrates Ohio Goes to the Movies, a signature event of America 250 Ohio, and is co-produced by John DeSando and Mary Yerina and hosted by Mary Yerina. Listen to shows Thursdays at 8:01 p.m. on WCBE 90.5 FM. And listen to shows and read reviews online at wcbe.org.
I'm Mary Yerina,
I'm John DeSando.
and this is Cinema Classics. John, our listeners may be having a bit of a Freaky Friday moment because I'm sitting in the host chair today, and I want to thank you for being my guest for this special edition of Cinema Classics.
Well, we're already getting calls in about how happy they are that you were hosting.
I don't know about that, but thank you. For our series focused on Ohio pedigreed movies, this film may be surprising to many because it's not an obvious choice, but why don't you tell us a little bit about this week's show?
This is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and when it came out in 1966, it was quite an event. An event because while it had been a success on Broadway, and it now starred two volatile people, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton.
And they were married at the time.
And they were
as well.
married. And so the smart people at Warner's figured this was good. They had other people they could put in there, other stars at that time. But I think it was probably Jack Warner who must have decided that these two were money in the bank. Because there's always been, I mean, I don't know if this was the second time they were married, but they had been messing around ever since Cleopatra. And they are, fortunately, two of the brightest actors we'll ever see on film. So it was a great choice, and they took a director, Mike Nichols, from Broadway, and put him in as the director, and that was another unusual choice.
And this was his first feature film as director.
You've got it. I mean, and several nominations and some wins for the actors, and I mean, it was just a splendid movie. But it was also Warner who allowed them to do black and white. And
one of the last black and white
yes,
films.
Yeah. When you look at it, Mary, it's nothing but black and white. I mean, I know it's difficult to think of anything as celebrated as this in a different form than it was. But you can try, as they've tried with Casablanca, another Warner Brothers film. They tried to color, Turner tried to colorize it. It's just awful. But if you've got anyone who doesn't care that much about film and balks at seeing black and white, show this one, show Casablanca, and I think they'll understand.
Well,
So,
it's
yeah.
definitely an art form, and the Broadway play you referred to is actually by the same name, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, written by Edward Albee.
Yes.
And when it premiered on Broadway in 1962, it made a huge impact because this is a very character-driven, dark study of the inner workings of a relationship between middle-aged man, professor, played by Richard Burton, named George, and his wife Martha, played by Elizabeth Taylor, who at the time when they made this film was at the height of her beauty in her early 30s, and she gained almost 30 pounds and really wanted to play this role in the frumpy early in her early 50s, who's really quite a shrew to George's professor. She thinks he's underachieved in his career, and she's stuck with him and stuck in this small college town in New England. And he, meanwhile, at sometimes seems very pliable and subservient to her attacks, but then he equally once they get going, attacks her. And it's rumored that on the set, because they were known in real life as a very volatile couple, that they themselves tried to goad each other and keep each other in that angry space, and Mike Nichols let them do that. And so the set for this film, which was unusually filmed in sequence, was very tense by all indications, and so all of that intensity definitely comes through in the performances. So why are George and Martha, what are they doing in this film?
Well, they're playing out the anger, I think, that any couple but you and Bob would have. I'm thinking of you as an idealized couple. But basically for any intelligent, sometimes self-directed couple, there are those moments that most people keep inside them. And I think the beauty of this is that it comes out, and they play it out. And they play it out in front of this young couple that is just almost stupefied at the volatility of these two. You begin to see as it moves along that this is also a way of their expressing love for each other. It seems so odd, doesn't it?
It does seem very odd.
And as you're thinking about, boy, but they have moments when you can see them, and they say, wow, this is brilliant actors, loving the other person.
Yes.
And there's
one can't exist without the other.
Yeah, boy.
They're so entangled as a couple.
And you can't help but think that this is the way Burton and Taylor probably are, or were in real life. And so, I mean, just as many people know, they changed the code, the production code.
Yes, this film caused quite a stir because a lot of people felt that it could not be made into a film as soon as they saw it on Broadway, because it's full of language that just was not permitted, and themes that just were not permitted.
Yes.
So when this came to Jack Warner's attention, he was a producer and studio head who really liked exploring dark, intense themes. And he personally made sure that they acquired the rights to Edward Albee's play. And Ernest Lehman, to his credit, with Jack Warner's backing, changed the script very little.
Yes.
There were some minor changes in the language. There were some changes to not being shot entirely in Martha and George's home, because on film you have the opportunity to do a little more exterior
they take it
shots.
out,
And this does take place in one night, and for the most part it does still feel like a theatrical piece, because it's basically 4 characters.
Yes.
And we find them walking home. The opening scene, lush black and white on this small college campus. They're walking home from some sort of event for faculty and staff, or
I
whoever.
think they filmed that section at Smith College.
They did. And so Martha and George are walking home. They get home, and Martha informs George that she's invited this young couple, new professor and his wife, to their home for an after-party drink. It is 2:30 in the morning.
I know.
And they are already drunk. They continue to drink. They ply their guests with drinks. And they start manipulating each other psychologically, and what they learn about Honey and Nick, who were played by Sandy Dennis and George Segal. And in fact, George Segal's character is never referred by name. He's only listed as Nick in the credits. But they start getting tangled in this web of games that George and Martha are playing with each other, and George especially uses the information he garners from them against them to manipulate them throughout this drunken, spurred evening. Mm-hmm. It's a very intense experience as an audience member, even today.
Oh yeah, and Sandy Dennis is so good, and she's nominated. I think she won, actually.
She actually did.
Yeah.
The film... and I have to get this right because it's a pretty phenomenal record. In addition to the critical and commercial success, it was nominated for 13 Academy Awards, and it was only eligible to be nominated in 13 categories. That's how well received this film was. So it certainly included Best Picture and Best Director, which it didn't win, but it did win 5 Academy Awards.
Yeah.
And it won Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Cinematography. We mentioned black and white. This was the last year that they gave out the Best Black and White Art Direction and Best Costume Design. Sadly, the men, George Siegel and Richard Burton, did not win, but it was one of only 2 films at the time that I think it was the first film, and there have been 2 films since then, where all the major acting categories, the actors were nominated.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a stellar achievement of how recognized this film was artistically, but I found it very relevant today, but very hard to watch.
Yes, yeah, and it lost to a formidable stage adaptation, A Man for All Seasons.
Yes.
Yeah, it's for it. So, you know, when you look at it, you look at who's against it, you're not okay. And I think Mike Nichols did not get the award for this, right? Which
He did not.
I believe in a better time he would have gotten it, but anyway.
He got his flowers later in life.
he really did. So the story itself is so volatile. You think you've seen gangster films, you think you've seen mighty Marvel movies and so on. You want to see real action, watch this movie. It is so much a part of what it means to grow up and what it means to adjust to whatever situation. Now, poor George, Daddy is the president of the college. You know, what is his chances?
His father-in-law is president of the college.
The character who doesn't appear, but is a powerful influence in the whole movie.
True.
Is Dad, and poor George, who seems to be a really bright guy, has to deal with this, and his wife will throw it up to him regularly.
Well, and I would say this film takes place in a period of 4 to 6 hours. This story.
Yep.
And the number of times that she invokes the fact that he's an underachiever and her daddy was right about him, and she actually calls him Swampy at one point.
She's brutal.
She's just vicious with regards to her views of her husband, and that they're stuck with each other.
Yeah.
So we talked about this as an Ohio-based film, and we've mentioned his name, but a lot of people may not know that this is a Jack Warner Brothers produced film.
Do you think we should do this?
We should, but if you want to hear more about the Warner Brothers story, definitely join us on our podcast, Double Take, because we'll talk about the connection between the Warner Brothers and Ohio. But before we do that, John, what's your recommendation to our audience about this film?
It's not for everyone.
To say the least.
Yeah, right. Duh. Yeah. But it is an introduction to how the difficult task of adapting from a live theater production to film, which is not easy at all. And as you had mentioned, taking it to a couple of different locations, the cantina, the road, and so on, relieves some of the tension that you might have in a theater, although a theater still allows it to breathe more than a motion picture does. And so, anyway, I think it's a study in motion picture making that's like no other that I know. That still, when I watched it this week again, I was practically breathless at their performances and at the complexity of it, and said, I'm not getting it all. Their dialogue is so fast. I'm not getting it.
I would agree with that, because I actually turned on the closed captions because I'm missing some of the dialogue here, and it was obvious that even the closed captions didn't know what to do with some of the lines that were being delivered. But it is a film that's a classic for a reason. It's on the AFI's 100 Best Films of All Time. It's been preserved in the Library of Congress. So it is a film worth seeing, but I agree with you. It is not for everyone, and it is not for the faint of heart.
And it was. It was, though, the second largest grossing film of 1966, beaten by Thunderball.
Go
Who
figure.
could do that? Well, yeah, but... I'm John DeSando.
Cinema, cinema, cinema. Glad classics. Let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits.